Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Mama Kay coming at you from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And today I have got the most amazing colleague to interview. I have to tell you, the first time that we met was at an MTS gathering where we ended up singing karaoke together. And Mr. Roboto will never be the same. I've always been one of my favorites, but it's taken it to another level because of this person. So, special guest, who are you?
Hi, I am Becky Brown, and I am the choir, dance, and theater teacher at Leila North Community School in Winnipeg.
How long have you been there for?
This is my 17th year at Leila North.
Holy crow. So where were you before, or was it your first gig, or where have you all taught?
I spent 1 year teaching in Toronto for the Toronto District School Board at two different schools. I was at a K-8 school in the morning, teaching primarily band with a little bit of other stuff thrown in, which tends to happen in a music program. And in the afternoon, I was teaching band and resource at a grade 7 and 8 school.
So now, as far as I know, you went to school here in Manitoba. Are you not a Brandon grad?
I am.
Now, how in the world did you go from getting your music degree here in Manitoba to teaching out in Ontario?
I had spent a lot of time thinking I wanted to try something different. I knew Manitoba very well. I knew the school systems here very well. I had some friends in Toronto that I wanted to be near. So I went out there. I actually spent half a year. This should be my 20th year of teaching, but I spent that first year bartending and doing a lot of other odd jobs waiting for my teaching certificate to transfer over into Ontario. There was a lot of paperwork to go with it.
Holy crow. So what was the process like I mean, you said you had to wait for your paperwork to get through. So getting a job there compared to getting a job here, what would the difference be?
Most of it is just strictly paperwork, getting all the right things sent in from the different organizations here in Manitoba. So the certification board, the universities, all of that. There was also, for any teachers coming from out of province, I guess it's an equivalency exam that I had to write. Luckily, I didn't have to write it until March. I had already been teaching from September, and in March is when I went to go write the exam. I'm glad I wrote it after I'd started teaching because there was a lot of Ontario-specific questions that I probably wouldn't have been able to answer before I started teaching there. I don't know if that's changed. This has been almost 20 years. But at the time, there was just I don't even remember what the questions were, but a lot of them were very Ontario government-specific and Ontario curriculum-specific.
Cool. And then you came back to Manitoba and went straight to Leila?
I did. I actually interviewed for the job over the phone from the boiler room of my grade 7-8 school in Toronto because it was the only place I could get cell phone reception.
That is wild. Well, I know that you are a lifer at Leila along with Darren Roy. Did you guys both start the same year?
We did.
And which is neat because he is from Ontario, isn't he not?
He is.
So that's rather wild. So what was your educational journey from baby Becky to where we are now? How did you know you wanted to do this whole crazy music gig?
Well, I grew up in St. James. I went to Linwood School and St. James Collegiate. Um, I knew I wanted to be a teacher right from the start. You know, those little quizzes you fill out at the end of every school year. I always wrote teacher. The music part came later, though. I had a wonderful music teacher in elementary school, Miss Carol Holmes, who really saw that the potential was there in me. She got my parents to put me into piano lessons, always gave me some sort of feature role in our Christmas concerts and things like that. Really encouraged me to go into the divisional programs in St. James. They have divisional choral groups, and they're all auditioned. And I was in the grade 5 group and in the middle school choir as well, where I met Debbie McLeod, who was also a huge part of my choral experience. When I got to high school, I was much more into musical theater and dance and things outside of school, but started to realize very quickly that because of some physical limitations with my knees, that being a dancer was probably not going to be in the cards for me. I'd had a few injuries that just kind of took me down and realized that if I still wanted to teach and do the performing arts, that maybe a music degree was the way to go. So that's kind of how I ended up there. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to do choir or band, and I am actually trained to do both. But choir, I think, kind of is where my passion lies. I enjoy playing in the band. I don't necessarily enjoy directing it as much as I like playing in the band.
What is your main instrument if you were to be a band teacher?
Flute.
See, it's a flute kind of day. Talking to DJ this morning, flute player turned trombonist and a flute player turned choral, which is really, really exciting. I mean, we flute players, we're just extra special.
Yeah. My band teacher in high school, our band program was pretty sad. There was maybe 40 of us, grade 9 to 12 combined. And my band teacher recognized that I was getting bored pretty quickly, so he let me switch instruments. So I moved from flute to clarinet, and then from clarinet to trumpet, and then trumpet to French horn. I was always the backup percussionist because we had a very unreliable snare drum player who didn't show up for festivals and concerts regularly. So by the time I finished grade 12, I played a lot of the instruments in the band, which I think helped a lot. I actually enjoy playing the trumpet probably a little more than all the others, but I don't quite have the chops for it anymore. I'm just out of practice.
Well, I think we're going to have to get you to come and play along at one of our concerts. You and Darren can sit together.
Definitely.
So, remembering, of course, that this is a family show, what would be one of the weirdest gigs or jobs that you've ever been involved in? And that's not in your regular teaching life, sort of beyond that. Because I mean, as musicians, we don't just make music in the classroom, right? So what would be something you could possibly share with us that's a little bit on the strange side?
Well, for music-related jobs, I worked as a karaoke hostess. My second and third year of university, there's a company in Brandon called Look Music. I was actually here in Winnipeg singing karaoke, and the guy at the bar offered me a job. I said, well, I don't live here. I live in Brandon. And he said, well, here's my friend's card. He could really use you. So I got the job, but most of the bars and locations that have karaoke in and around the Brandon area are much more country music focused. So he gave me a stack of cassette tapes of country music I needed to know and sent me home to learn them. And then I got sent around to all these little rural places. So I did places like Carlisle, Saskatchewan, and the Shiloh Air Force Base, and all these little towns that we would drive out to on the weekends, and they'd put us up in hotels for the night. And it was really an interesting look at that there are amazing singers hiding in the smallest corners of the world. There was one girl who got up to sing in one of the bars in Saskatchewan who blew me away. This girl should have had a record deal and everything else. And she was just a girl from a small town. She lived, I think, on the reservation just outside of town. And she was amazing, blew me away. Just vocals that I've never, and I have not heard somebody who sings like her since.
Really?
So, yeah.
That's incredible.
It's really interesting to see where musicians come out of all walks of life.
It all depends on who's around you to sort of lift you up and open doors for you, right? If you're going to end up making some sort of career out of it. I'm sure that you had to really work on your poker face at some of those karaoke events that I'm sure has helped you in many situations in your career as it is now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes you have to look a little harder for beautiful.
Yes.
Do you have any advice for students who are thinking of potentially going into music as a career?
The number one thing I would say is if you are thinking of going into music as a career and you do not have a heavy piano or theory background, that is definitely something to look into now. It was where I struggled in university. I had piano, but it had been kind of off and on. I took piano when I was younger, then stopped for a while because I was dancing competitively, and then I got back into piano. I wasn't theory-wise where I would have liked to have been, and all of my theory classes were the classes I really struggled with in university. And if I'd had just an extra year to kind of brush up and be ready for that, I think I would have been much more successful and a little less frustrated.
Absolutely. Any extra little bits of worldly wisdom in these weird times that we're living in? It doesn't even have to be music specific, but things that you might think people maybe you would need to hear that are helping you through these times?
I don't know. I would say right now music is kind of what's helping me. If I find I'm having a day where things are just not going right, or my daughter and I are fighting, or the dogs are driving me crazy, or I want to get out of the house and it's snowing. I find music just helps, and it's different kinds of music all the time. If I want to get up and do something, I know there's certain types of music I want to put on. If I want to go sit in the corner and cry, that's okay too. There's other types of music I use for that. Just finding those little bits and pieces that are kind of helping you through the day is really important right now.
Isn't it interesting how everybody is turning to the arts to get through this, and yet we're always having to fundraise and reach out and and fight for what we know is important in our jobs. And we know that the arts, music, anything creative, it's what keeps us going. And hopefully a lot of learning will be done by the people that maybe need to learn a little bit about how important we are, will happen after all of this.
Yeah, and right now there is so much really cool free stuff online. Like if you go to Broadway.com, they're doing sing-alongs with the casts of different shows, and there are people doing master classes. Debbie Allen did a dance class on Instagram last week for free, and like just these amazing like people who are just pillars of our communities, of the different styles of the performing arts, who are just coming through and reaching out and being there for people. Is just amazing. The amount of stuff that's out there right now that you could do besides binge watching Netflix is amazing. You just got to take the time to find it.
Absolutely. Well, I know that before we started recording today, we even talked about setting up some links for our students to sort of check out everything that keeps popping up basically daily, right?
Yes.
And more stuff. So yeah, for our students, please watch out for little postings. I know we're both going to sort of get into Google Classroom and anything we find that's cool you want to share with you. So Ms. Brown, I feel so lucky to get to teach with you, Leila, and that you are, after feeling alone for teaching so many years in a school all by myself, I feel that I am so lucky to have an incredible colleague right beside me. I mean, obviously Trevor too is very important, but you were there first. So I want to thank you for your friendship and your support and for taking time today.
Oh, no problem. Glad to do it.
Hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.